Well, I was later involved in the review of the proceedings and findings of 4 of the 8 projects which were part of the second phase, and later on the synthesis of all the exercise and the lessons learned. Unfortunately, changes within IDRC did not allow really for consolidating the outcome of this effort and develop a suitable methodology for monitoring and evaluation, and evaluating the impact of information. Relying upon standard statements like it is clear, we believe, on those sort of things. Is clearly more comfortable for all those who set to promote information for development, that is, information technology infrastructures in most cases. To some extent, my other main activities in the last part of this period can be regarded as a follow-up of the impact study. This included, in particular, participating in a project called El Salvador Learning Society. This project attempted at formulating a national development strategy based upon mechanism for expanding and capitalizing upon intangible assets. It was also designed as a participatory exercise, and so limitations in resources and more radically in time didn't allow for fully reaping all contemplated benefits. It was a rather successful and obviously exciting project. It was probably the first one of this kind, and I'm suspicious that it was the last one. It may be interesting to note that this innovative exercise was in part the result of discussions in the first Global Knowledge Conference, a major portion of which had been conducted online. A side effect of the project was the launch of a program to establish a national network of telecenters, as opposed to the 2 or 3 pilot projects which were initially contemplated. Even though this occurred partly as an unforeseen consequence of the project, but it will take too long to tell the story. As usual, bureaucratic constraints, political changes prevented the implementation of the proposed strategies, at least for the immediate future. I later on became an active participant in an open online forum organized by Daniel Pimienta, the president of Funredes, called Mystica, for methodology and social impact of information and communication technologies in America. It attempted a thorough questioning of the role of ICT in social transformation of Latin America and the Caribbean. And at the same time, it was experiencing method for online and face-to-face multilingual computer-aided conferences and interaction. Canada's IDRC was supporting the project, and Mystica assembled a vibrant community which put much emphasis on social readiness and relevance as opposed to mere access as a key for effective use of ICT. In parallel, we had another project also funded by IDRC and implemented by Fundraiders, which was tried to develop concepts and methods for evaluating the social impact of ICT in the context of Latin America and the Caribbean. I was serving in the steering committee of this project, and it was an occasion to try and turn the table in relation to the dominant discourse and practice about monitoring and evaluation of ICT projects. This challenge is to look at the accomplishments in relation to the context and requirements of the population supposed to benefit from the deployment of ICT, and to have the communities effectively and directly involved in the assessment. I had a few other opportunities to elaborate on these concepts, which obviously were not received with much enthusiasm by the institutional players in the development system. A major involvement was my participation as member of the steering committee and later advisor to the board of the association which was trying to establish a network of telecenters in Latin America and the Caribbean. This was known as Somos Telecentros. This effort evolved from an initial attempt at taking stock of the telecenters' experience in the region, but the local leaders quickly realized that rather than a snapshot, what was necessary was a framework allowing for the sharing of experience among the actors. This effort was supported by Canada's IDRC. Near the completion of the project, we presented a portfolio of activities aiming at strengthening telecenters deployment in the region and their association within this open Somos Telecentros structure. One should bear in mind that at that time the telecenters movement was strongly advocating for free and open source software. Anyway, our proposals were not accepted by the donor, which almost at the same time or very shortly later on made a deal with a major ICT supplier in order to develop a global organization of telecenters. Maybe the deal was the other way around. Anyhow, many of the proposed functions and activities which Somos had formulated were taken on board by the new organization, except for a truly democratic and participatory organization of the community. During a few years, Somos Telecentros succeeded in maintaining a fair level of activity, but progressively a number of national structures emerged which were supported by the new organization or eventually created by the new organization. Oh, that was sort of end of the story. Maybe worth noticing is the fact that the issue of free and open software has progressively disappeared or largely be put aside in the agenda of telecenters. In parallel, during the period, I was also involved in setting up a research in the setting up of a research community called Community Informatics Research Network, which was also another interesting case about the tensions and conflicts between the virtual and the real in organizations. Okay, and then we reach the last trend, which is 2005 to 2011. In 2006, I was appointed as visiting professor of the Department of Information Studies at University College London, UK. But this was more an honorary position. It resulted in very few opportunities for joint work. I continued running a seminar on international aspects of information systems and services in the Master of Information Science at the Catholic University of the West in Angers, till this program was discontinued. And I also lectured on information policies at the University of Marne-la-Vallée, near Paris. An exciting opportunity, I must say, occurred in 2009. I had the chance to be invited to teach an online course on public information policies at San Jose State University. My involvement with Somos Telecentros moved in a broader arena. We were involved in attempts at structuring partnerships at the level of the Americas, North and South, and even at a global level. The idea was to allow for grassroots telecenters organizations to have access to global policy making arenas, for instance, the World Summit of the Information Society, and be able to raise their voice by themselves. There was a parallel effort related to the development of a platform allowing seamless e-commerce functions for telecenters. But, well, probably it was too ambitious. And anyhow, the hidden forces that preserve the status quo were obviously stronger. I also had the opportunity to do a few consultancies, but during this period, but nothing really significant. The illness of my lady, and later the shock of her death and absence after more than 40 years led me to progressively stop professional activities. Okay, so you ask what, in my opinion, did I contribute to the field? Did I contribute anything? Can anyone claim a unique personal contribution? Isn't it amusing to hear claims of being the father or inventor of this or that, for instance the internet or the web? There should be a compulsory statement in the acceptance speeches of all the prizes, awards, etc. This was a collective effort, and I am happy to take the pride for myself. So these beauty contests are yet another mechanism to enforce competition and inequality as an essential component of society. The best one can do is to take a fair part in an effort which is by essence collective. Okay, but what did I, with others, brought to the movement? Well, I intended, and I hope I did, bring a focus on the social and cultural dimensions of information and knowledge cycle. What calls for sticking to complexity and holistic approaches. As a complement, I helped the accomplishment, requirements and visions of actors in the so-called developing countries to receive more attention. Unfortunately, these are not subjects that attract highest attention. These concerns prompted my involvement, among other things, in the FID, now extinct, the International Federation for Information and Documentation, assists CIII and its International Relations Committee as well. Most of the work we have been doing in the 70s and 80s regarding national information systems, policies, etc., seems to have vanished. Information as contents has been absorbed, not to say destroyed, by information and communication technology applications. We can only hope that the principles of ordering and social relevance upon which they relied will sooner or later regain attention. It seems, however, that for the time being, anything pre-internet is simply ignored. May I add something? If long after one has left, a former student or colleague tells her or his co-workers or students something like, you know folks, long ago I worked with a guy by the name of so-and-so. He was a strange and difficult character. But gosh, we did a great job and we had fun. Then one's life was not totally useless. I cross fingers for this to happen to me.